Welcome to the CAD 2 Week 4 tutorial. Now this tutorial is going to follow along with the written tutorial here. The tutorial and the assignment in general are not to create full drawings of these three parts, just to simply create a drawing with all the necessary views, and that's it. We still need to submit them as a PDF, but we're just looking to create the drawing views. So the first thing you're going to want to do is download these three files and open up this tutorial. Once that's done, we can open SOLIDWORKS. So, moving over to SOLIDWORKS, I'm going to open these parts from my downloads one at a time. So I'm going to go to Open, go to my Downloads folder. There it is. And here are my three parts. Now, the first part on the list or in the tutorial is actually the chuck jaw here. So we're going to start with the chuck jaw. And then I'm going to take the tutorial, and I'm actually going to move this tutorial to my other screen so that I can follow along as I explain it. So, now that we have the chuck jaw open, we're going to take this and we're going to create a section view and a broken out section view, or a crop view. So, before I start anything, again, these are old files. I need to save them to update them to the current version of SOLIDWORKS. And I need to confirm the units. This is an inch part. So, I'm going to go File, New, English, Drawing. Perfect. Now, as we start to make drawings with section views, something's going to happen. A lot of times, our front view is going to end up wanting to be a section view. So if I go to my view palette and pick this part, what we actually want is our front view to be a section view based off the top, meaning that the first view we're going to actually need to place is the top view. Now, normally we'd have the top view, the front view, and then a right view, but we're going to create our section view off of this top view. So now that I've created this top view, I'm going to create a section view. And this is the part where, again, if you're not in the default interface, if you're still in simplified, I would go up and disable simplified interface. Now, we're going to go to drawing. And again, drawing is anything related to creating views, and annotation is anything related to labeling. We're just going to be creating views here. Now, what we're going to do is create a standard section view. And again, a section view just cuts through the part imaginarily to show us the inside. So I'm going to click Section View, and it actually defaulted to horizontal. So we have a couple types: vertical, horizontal, then we have auxiliary, and aligned. I want to do a horizontal section, so that's good. And when I place it over, I want to actually pin this to something. So you can see when I hover over the holes, it shows me the center of the hole. I'm going to pin it there. With that, I'm going to hit OK and move down. Now you'll notice my section arrows are pointing up. Your part view needs to be in the opposite direction that the arrows point. The arrows represent the direction you're looking. So that's going to go down here like this. Perfect. Now, this is a really common thing to see. We have our front view functionally, but it's actually a section view because that gives us a lot more information. From here, we can actually use our projected view tool we can select section view, then use the projected view tool to actually create a normal right view and a normal auxiliary view. And that's a totally normal and fine thing to do. The whole point is that our front view has been replaced with a section view, which gives us a bit more control. Okay. Now, the other thing we would actually need in order to dimension it is this arc under this surface. So if I go in here and I turn on my hidden lines, you see this arc right here? We need to be able to dimension that. And we can't really dimension it in either of these other views. We need to dimension it where we can see it as an arc. However, we can't dimension to this hidden line. That's not allowed. So what can we do? Well, we could create a whole nother section view off of this point right here, but that would take a lot of space. Instead, we're going to use what's known as a broken out section view, which just breaks away a small portion of the view to show an internal feature. So we're going to go to broken out section. We're going to hit OK. Now we're going to go to broken out section. Now you'll see it actually puts you into a drawing tool. This is called the spline tool. We need to draw the boundary that we want to cut. So I'm going to click and start drawing, and you'll see it starts as a straight line, but as I click and continue, it creates a continuous curve. So I'm clicking periodically throughout to give me a nice controlled curve. And then I'm going to close out that loop. When I finally close the loop, it's going to ask me for a depth. That's how deep do we want to break through. Now, according to the tutorial, the length of this surface right here is about 1 inch. We want to cut a little bit beyond that so we can see that curves. So we're going to cut to a depth of 1.1. And I'm going to pick OK. Now you can see that it's actually cut just what was within that circle away from view. Now when it comes time to dimension this, I can actually smart dimension that point, and I'm not dimensioning to a hidden line, so that's fully legal. Now, we don't need to actually include this dimension here. I was just doing that for an example. Now, to finish off your regular drawing, go ahead and take your ISO view, change it back to a standard view, and then make it smaller and add your note. So current scale is 1:1. Let's do 2:3. That's better. Then we can add our note. We're not doing full drawings. This isn't strictly necessary, but it's good to keep the habit up of the first step of creating your views. Put in my initials and today's date, 2:10. Although you're not watching this on 2:10, but that's the date I'm creating this video. So we should also add our center lines here. So we can add those, add one here. And this actually brings up another good point. So this is 2 separate holes, and you can see it's created 2 center lines. We don't want that. Those holes share the same axes. So we should delete one of them and take one of the existing center lines, and if we click it, we can actually pick the endpoint and extend that up. And now we have one center line to take care of it. Same thing here. I've got one center line. I'm going to extend this up so that it covers all the holes that go through the part. And I don't believe there's any tangent edges, but just to keep up with habit, turn tangent edges off. Nothing changed. We're good to go. So that's one drawing down and done. We can save that, make a PDF. Now, let's open part number 2. Part number 2 in the tutorial is the half coupling. And we're going to use this one to make what's called an aligned section. So this is once again an inch part. So we'll save it, convert it. Then we'll make a new drawing in inches. And we'll create this one. For this one, we're going to end up doing the same thing. We're actually going to use our right view to start and then create a section view based on that. Now, in this case, you may actually want to treat your right view as the front view, even though it wasn't modeled that way. And that's okay. It's not worth taking the time to recreate the model just to fix that. If I drag this right view in and use that as my front view, all my views are going to be correct, and that's fine. So, to create our aligned section view, we're going to go to Drawing and go to Section View, and we're going to use the bottom right one, Aligned. Now, an aligned section view allows you to cover multiple features at different angles, and is really commonly used among revolve parts. The first thing we're going to place is the pivot point in the center. So I'm going to put that right in the middle of my part. Then we'll place the first leg, which I'll place on the vertical hole. Then I'll place the second leg, which I'll place on this bottom right hole. Whether we place it on the bottom right or bottom left isn't really going to make a difference in this case. Now I'll hit OK, and we can see my arrows are actually pointing to the right. I want them to point the other way so that my view can go over on the right side. So I have to go over here and hit flip direction. Now those are pointing left, my view is inverted, and I can place it here. You can see now that this section view shows both of these holes and the center hole. This lets you catch more features in less views and convey more information quickly. Again, we use a different view as our auxiliary view. So I'm just going to go to, or sorry, not our auxiliary, our isometric view. So I'm simply going to select projected view, select the view I'm treating as my front view, and move it up and to the right. Now I've got my isometric view. Filling out the rest of it's the same, although in this one you'll notice the material is not set. You can set the material to whatever you'd like as long as it's a metal. And you can add the drawn by and title as well into the part. Finish filling out the rest of this part, and then you'll have another drawing done. I'm not going to do that part because it's repetitive, even if it is part of the routine, and I don't want to take up more time of the tutorial. So let's look at the last part. The last part is the offset section part, oddly named because we're going to be creating an offset section with it. Now, for this one, it's again in inches. We're again going to save it, and then we will file, new, and make a drawing. Okay. I'm going to go to my view palette again, pick my offset section, and look at my views. So for this one, I'm going to use the front view as the front view. I'm going to drag that in and start from here. I can create my ISO view. I can move that into place. I can change its scale just to get it out of the way for now. We're going to make that really small. Perfect. Now, let's focus on the offset section. So an align section allows you to align multiple features in a round part. An offset section allows you to move the section line to catch multiple features in a regular square or rectangular part. So I want to catch both of these holes and the center hole in one section view so that I can see all of them in their form that way in one view as opposed to two. So to do that, I'm going to go to section view, and we're going to use a linear. Now, we want to offset as little as possible. So rather than start with the middle one and offset it down, we're going to start with the lower ones and add an offset going up to the middle one. You see when I first click to place that, I get this pop-up. This gives me a few options. I can do an arc offset, a single offset, or a notch offset. We're going to use a notch offset and notch up the middle of this. So when I click notch offset, you'll notice it gives me a new tool to add some points to this. We're going to define a start point and an end point for our notch, and then place the depth of the notch. So I'm going to click to the left of this hole, to the right of the hole, and then set my depth to be the center of that hole. I can do that and hit OK, and now I get a section view showing me all three holes. Now I'm not sure why that got placed over there. Let's see if rebuilding fixes that. That is interesting. Excuse me, SolidWorks, what are you doing? There it goes. So if yours does that, just wiggle it a little bit. SolidWorks sometimes makes weird graphical bugs, and you have to kind of move things or refresh it to wake it up. But that gives us a notch section. You can see our section line goes across the bottom two, notches up to catch the middle, and now I can see all of them in my section view. The whole point of section views is to convey a lot more information with less views. They're really helpful and will be used quite frequently, especially as parts get more complicated. You can follow along with this video or the paper tutorial or use both. Just remember, I want you to submit PDFs with the section views and the header filled out. You don't have to fully dimension these parts, but I do want the header filled out and the views in place correctly because those things are always going to be there and they're not going to change. So the main focus, however, is the section views. That's what I'm really looking for. Just don't forget to submit as a PDF, please.